Hi everyone, Jake here for FMSCOUT, and today I'm going to be answering the age-old question in Football Manager of which countries produce the best NEWGENs. This video will hopefully help with your scouting, where to focus in on finding Wonderkids and maybe even find you the next big star for your guys' sides. And do bear with us in this video because there's a few surprises that you might not expect. So let's run the intro and get right into it. Hi everyone, and as I mentioned in that intro, today's video is going to focus on which nations can produce the best NEWGENs on a regular basis in your FM saves. I did have a list given to me with all the different ratings, and there is definitely some surprises in this list. Before we get into the details of the video and how it's going to work, I'd like to ask you guys, if you enjoyed this kind of content, if you find it useful, smash the like button. It really does help in how these videos perform. Comment down below where you found your best Wonderkids and subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. And if you want to, you can find my channel linked in the description as well. So just a quick explanation before we look at the nations. Under the hood of Football Manager, things you can't see unless you're using editors are a couple of things that are going to affect the ability of a nation in terms of how it produces its NEWGENs. Your first one is the one that I think a lot of people do know about, youth rating. So this is a rating between 0 and 200, 200 being the best of how good a country is at producing youngsters. Now this is supposedly dynamic, and there's been a lot of talk about whether that is the case or not. I know there was an update to it in the winter update, but I haven't had enough chance to delve into it, find out all the details as to whether this is the case or not. But supposedly this number is dynamic, but I think it will take a while in your guys' saves before you see a shift in this. But the one a lot of people don't recognise it has an influence is game importance. Now this can mean a lot of things, but to put it in a simple way, it basically is the willingness of that country to improve the infrastructure, your facilities of the clubs in that nation, and therefore have a better chance of producing better young players. So we're going to be using those two metrics, youth rating and game importance, today to figure out which nations have a better chance of producing NEWGENs. But of course, this isn't guaranteed. It does not rule out the fact that Samoa, let's say, who will have low ratings in both areas, it doesn't mean they can't produce a Wonderkid. It just means they've got less of a chance, and on a less regular basis, they will produce these high level NEWGEN players that are hopefully going to influence your guys' sides. There's going to be a few surprises. We're going to go through by football federation, and we're going to start in Asia, where there's certainly a few surprises there. So the first country I would suggest looking at, particularly if you're in a longer term save, I have seen a lot of very good Wonderkids crop up in the nation of Japan. They have a game importance rating of very important, which is the highest you can get, and they have a youth rating of 112, which is a very good margin and is actually a lot higher than some nations that you might consider big footballing nations. For example, I can tell you their youth rating and game importance is higher than that of Croatia. So if you're someone who looks at those nations for Wonderkids, I would definitely suggest checking out Japan. Now this is going to apply for every single nation we look at, but that could be through scouting region based, or if you don't know already, I think a best way of finding the best Wonderkids from a nation, you'd hover over this national team button, click under 19s or under 23s, under 21s, whatever the option is for that nation, and you'll see all the best Wonderkids filling that up, because of course the best ones are going to get picked for the national sides. You can then scout from there and figure out which ones you want for your guys' sides. But Japan is definitely one to consider. South Korea is another nation to keep an eye on. They have a rating of 110 and a game importance of important, so they're definitely worth looking at. And I'm not going to overly stick on every single country. We'll move through them quite quick, but do check out South Korea. And for our final Asian team, we have got Iran, who have a youth rating of 110 and a game importance of the highest level with very important. Now this doesn't rule out every other Asian Federation nation, that's a bit of a tongue twister to say, but it does mean that these teams particularly have a very good chance of producing some top level young superstars. And you might have also noticed that Japan, Iran and South Korea have a higher world ranking than you might have thought they would have in terms of the national teams, so they're definitely worth checking out, and you will, over the course of a 5-year save, let's say, find some good players coming out of these nations. So now we're moving into the African Football Federation. Before we get into it though, I'd like to let you guys know I do have my own channel linked in the description, which I have mentioned already, but to tell you a little bit about it, it's more let's play style than it is informative. So we have a save going with Wolfsburg, as well as some random one-off rebuild videos that a lot of you guys have really enjoyed. So if you want to check that out and hit the subscribe button over there, I would appreciate it more than you'll ever know. But yeah, let's head over to Africa, and we've got Egypt, who have a game importance of very very important, and a youth rating of 125, I believe. Just to let you know, my parameters for getting in this video is to have a youth rating of 100 or higher and a game importance of important or very important. So if anyone reaches those boundaries, they should be, if I've found them all, in this video. So we've got Egypt, and your other African nation is Algeria. They've got a youth rating of 102 and a very high game importance, so they, in theory, can produce a few good new gens in your save. The best new gen producing country in CONCACAF that I could find was Mexico, ranked 11th in the world. They have a very high game importance, and they also have a youth rating of 120, making them the best team for producing new gens in CONCACAF, and you'll see that in your saves. There's always a good Mexican striker running around. It just seems to happen every single time, so always keep an eye out there for a few good Wonderkids. Okay, now we're in the South American region that consists of the likes of Colombia, Argentina, Brazil, but just to let you know, every country in this football federation has a game importance of very important and all have a decent youth rating, but we're going to be focusing on the best ones here that have the best chance of producing Wonderkids. Now, it should be noted that if you have a league loaded compared to if you don't have that league loaded, for example, if you have the Argentinian divisions loaded in one save and not in another, you're going to get a greater number of regens, of course, in the save where you've got the country loaded, because they're going to need plenty of regens to keep these clubs going and playing, whereas you might have seen in your saves before, if for example you didn't have Argentina loaded and you go over to, let's say, River, a couple years into your save, instead of having a full squad of an under-19 team, what they're going to have is probably 4 players in there that you can actually see and click into. So if you do have a countries league loaded, then you're likely going to have a greater set to choose from, but it might not necessarily mean that you're going to get less quality in terms of the regens produced. But back to Argentina, and they are the best regen producing nation that we've looked at so far, with a game importance of very important and a youth rating of 140. They've definitely got a good chance of producing regens and maybe even the next Lionel Messi, but it's Brazil that top the lot with a youth rating of 163 and a very important game rating. Brazil, Argentina, everyone knows already. Scout them, or at least check out their national teams in a couple of years, and you will find gems galore of Wonderkids that can influence your sides. And the final South American nation to make it into our list is Colombia, with a youth rating of 112 and a game importance rating of very important. Now, if you want the full list of every single nation, you can find that in the description. There's an article on FMSCOUT that I used for making this video, and it is very cool to look at and to learn from in terms of, wow, I didn't know that before, I didn't know that country was this good, and this country was not as good as I expected, and that kind of thing. It is very useful. But before we move into the European countries, I will say these things aren't the only factors that are going to produce good new gens, because you've got to think, if you have Brazil, for example, and take the clubs in the top divisions there, they're likely going to have good youth facilities and good youth recruitment, and those things are of course going to affect the quality of new gens that come through at those clubs. However, if you took a country like Peru and used the editor to change their youth rating and game importance to match that of a Brazil or an Argentina, because the clubs in that country don't have as good youth recruitment and good youth academies and that kind of thing, there's going to be less chance of them producing a top quality youngster. That of course is going to factor into their chances of producing good quality youngsters, so it's always a good idea to keep that in mind too. But just as a general rule, these nations that we're talking about will have a good chance of producing some good young talent. Okay, so I'm conscious of dragging this video out for too long, so I will zoom through the European countries. We start off with Serbia, who just make it into the list with a 100 youth rating and a game importance of very important. Spain has a youth rating of 145 and a game importance of very important, so Spain are one of the best Wonderkid producing nations in Football Manager. Turkey also make the list with a very important game importance and a 124 youth rating, and the reason I said there was some surprises in this video is you might see a team like Serbia that we talked about with 100 youth rating and a game importance of very important. You might have always considered Serbia as a good Wonderkid producing nation, and that is of course because they are. They have some great clubs with some great youth producing capabilities, but it's just surprising that, for example, Japan and South Korea actually have the better youth rating and the better game importance, so over the course of a long-term save, will give them a chance of producing some top quality youngsters, the same as Serbia, and possibly, depending on how long term you go in a save, have a chance to produce even better youngsters than a country like Serbia can. Portugal have a youth rating of 134 and a game importance of very important. Can you find the next Ronaldo? Russia has a youth rating of 118 and a game importance of important. Italy have 144 as a youth rating and a very important game importance. That puts them only one youth rating behind Spain. Then to run through the last couple, we've got Belgium with a game importance of very important and a youth rating of 120. France with very important and 155 is their youth rating. Germany with the exact same numbers as France. England with 135 and a game importance of very important. And we finish off with Holland, the Netherlands with 132 and a game importance of very important. So there we go, guys. That is a list of all of the best Wonderkid producing nations in terms of the two factors that we did look at. So all of these nations are worth either scouting or just checking out their national teams in a few years' time. I'm hoping you got some use out of this video. Maybe you got your notepad down and wrote them all out. But as I mentioned, there is a link in the description to the full list where you can work out yourselves of which ones you'd like to scout based on what save you're running and your budget and all of that good stuff. Hopefully you have enjoyed. If you have, drop a like on the video, subscribe to the channel if you haven't already, and feel free to check out my channel linked in the description. But most of all, have a great day, guys, and I'll see you next time. Thank you and goodbye.